So that act, if you were to prejudge me based on the color of my skin, it wouldn't be considered necessarily racist from the pop culture sort of mindset today.
But if you did that exact same thing to me, it would be considered racist and a byproduct of systemic racism because you were essentially programmed to do that. So let's talk a little bit about today.
Okay.
Okay. I kind of want to get into that. I mean, we can stay in the past for a little bit longer, but
maybe that's part of the problem with today.
Ooh, I like it, Deal. Come on, go ahead. What we got?
Well, for example, when I hear a lot of people talk about race today, there's a few terms that often come up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them I think is directly related to what we were just talking about is the word racism.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a conflation between the word racism and systemic or systematic racism.
Sure.
And how that term is kind of just turned into the word racism.
Okay.
For example, from my understanding, the historical position on what racism typically means, and correct me if I'm wrong, is prejudging or having prejudice for someone else based on the color of their skin.
Okay.
And today it's kind of changed where more modernly, and I think I've noticed this shift more in like the past 5 to 7 years in the popular culture, where it's someone who is in a position of power socially, so like a straight white male, for example, just them being alive, from what I understand, and just being around, they are naturally racist, even if they don't intend to be, because the system itself was set up for that individual today. So it's not really judging. It's ironic because it's prejudice.
It's kind of going down what's it called? CRT? This critical race theory.
Yeah. And that's like a whole other can of worms because you have like different CRT scholars that define it a little bit differently.
It's a goofy can of worms, but go ahead.
Yeah. But it's basically that sort of term where racism is not the act of someone prejudging someone based on the color of the skin and how they interact with that person, but it's ironically prejudging people who are white and viewed as in a position of power simply based on them being white. So, for example, Jalen, you are incapable of being racist under this sort of definition.
Oh,
yeah,
get out of jail free card.
I guess so.
That's incredible. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So. Obviously, when you lay it out like that, it's technically impossible unless you conflate the word racism to mean something different compared to its historical meaning and what it means today. That's why I love etymology so much.
Sure.
You know what words meant 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It drastically changed all the time. So that act, if you were to prejudge me based on the color of my skin, it wouldn't be considered necessarily racist from the pop culture sort of mindset today.
But if you did that exact same thing to me, it would be considered racist and a byproduct of systemic racism because you were essentially programmed to do that.
Right. So I've inherited the system that's changed who I am in that sense, I guess. So
sure, and you inherited it just by virtue of being white.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't agree with it, but that's kind of. That's kind of the term that I'm seeing a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, the reason why I left that pause there because I wanted the viewers to understand how stupid that sounds. I hope everybody understood how stupid that sounds. But okay.
But I think that pivots into another term that I think is really closely related to the term racism.
And go ahead.
I'd love to get your opinion on it.
Yep.
The idea of white privilege.
Triggering. I'm triggered. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up.
Yeah, so basically,
and now they're laying down.
People who are, from what I understand, people who are white are privileged just based on the color of their skin.
Okay.
Because you're white, you have a privilege.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sure you're familiar with this term, but what's your take on that term, that concept, and how it's kind of related to systemic racism today?
Yeah. So, I think the term, I think it's one of those cool trigger terms that that'll get you going, get the blood pressure up. Do I think it has some legitimacy to it on a case-by-case basis? I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Do I think generally here in 2023, because that's what we're talking about here today, is that the case? No.
Okay.
I don't. I think that you can find a case where everybody's privileged in some way, shape, or form.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, if you were to go to Africa, and hang amongst Black Africans, you would find that they probably think us Black Americans are extremely privileged.
You have American privilege.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
you're taller than me. You have tall privilege,
or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and so do I think that you? Once again, can I find some individual examples where this is actually legit? Sure.
Yeah.
But can I slap this blanket on an entire nation here in 2023? No, I don't think so.